Item Number: SCP-299. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures: a 200-meter wide forest of SCP-299 is to be contained in an underground biodome, Area 299, in the desert. All other specimens encountered are to be incinerated. No plant life is to come into contact with SCP-299 outside of controlled testing. Areas infested by SCP-299 should be considered a Class 8 hazard zone, firebombed repeatedly, and monitored for 4 weeks. Any further infestation is to be incinerated, as well as any wildlife present on the site. Description: SCP-299 is an arboriform organism characterized by black, sharp-pointed branches. Closer inspection reveals that each instance of SCP-299 is connected to its neighboring trees by the roots. Prolonged contact converts these neighboring trees into other instances of SCP-299. This is SCP-299's only known method of reproduction. Addendum 299-1. SCP-299 infection will result from prolonged contact with any material from SCP-299. Conversion times vary by the size of the infectee. Generally, after a few minutes of exposure, the infected plant begins to shed its leaves. Low branches shift downwards, to a height of 30 to 100 centimeters, and taper to a point. Higher branches retain leaves and shift upwards towards the top of the tree, forming a dense canopy that makes overhead identification impossible. Addendum 292-2. Microscopic analysis of low branches revealed that these points are compromised of the same material as the rest of the infected plant, and are remarkably sharp. Direct contact with the point of the branch from SCP-299 is unadvised, as even a sliver of 299 material embedded in the skin is known to produce disastrous results. See Experiment Log 299-1. Vine-like tendrils grow upwards from the roots of SCP-299, reaching heights of upwards of 2 meters. These tendrils are prehensile and elastic. Organic objects entering close proximity are violently seized, impaled upon the lower branches, and incorporated into the organism via gradual conversion on a molecular level. Specimens of SCP-299 release chemicals known to spread throughout the immediate area and cause heightened paranoia and aggression in most animals, including humans. Under the influence of these chemicals, groups of people tend to split up and wander through the forest alone, making them more likely to pass through an infected area. Addendum 299-3. Examination of material harvested from SCP-299 reveals that the wood is brittle and similar in composition to a single cell of SCP-299 will retain its infectious nature and is capable of reconfiguring an entire organism upon introduction. Experiment Log 299-1. Item: 1 maple seedling. Researcher: Dr. Test Record: a sample of matter from SCP-299 was introduced to the seedling. Over the course of 45 minutes, the seedling was completely converted into a specimen of SCP-299, retaining its height and approximate size. Seedling incinerated after testing. Item: 1 oak tree. Researcher: Dr. Test Record: oak tree transplanted into containment area of SCP-299. Over 3 hours, the tree is completely converted into a specimen of SCP-299, retaining its height and approximate size. Matter taken from the new specimen is consistent with the matter from its neighboring specimens. Item: 1 sunflower. Researcher: Dr. Test Record: a sample of matter from SCP-299 is introduced to a sunflower. Over 10 minutes, the plant is completely converted into a specimen of SCP-299, retaining its height and size. The flower petals have blackened and tapered into spikes, consistent with SCP-299's spike branches. Tendrils are frail and incapable of grasping large objects. SCP-299's trunk snapped upon introduction of researcher's foot. Remains incinerated after testing. Item: 1 European grapevine, confined to a pot growing upwards along the tendrils. Researcher, Dr. Test record. Sample of matters from SCP-299 introduced to the grapevine. Subject converted within 30 minutes. Subject detaches from tendrils and adopts a prehensile nature of SCP-299 tendrils. Spike protrudes from rooted area. Item: results of previous experiment and 1 pig. Researcher, Dr. Test record. Pig introduced to testing area. Subject showed signs of agitation. Upon investigation of SCP-299, subject was violently seized and constricted, eventually suffocating before being implanted onto a spike. Specimen was left in containment and observed for 3 days. Over that time, the mass of the pig and tendril tissue was integrated into the main vine. Spikes grew from its base, the roots extending and tendrils grew from them, and branches grew from the top of the tree, sprouting buds and leaves. Specimen was incinerated after testing. Notes: SCP-299 appears not to be limited to trees. Infected plants seem to react slightly differently depending upon their unique biology. All specimens, however, eventually become SCP-299 trees, if given enough time to grow and change form. Item: Venus flytrap. Researcher, Dr. Testing record. And the violently remains incinerated. Addendum 299-4. O5 Command has requested that researchers refrain from experimentation with carnivorous plants. Item: pig. Researcher, Dr. Matter from SCP-299 injected into a pig. Pig began squealing and moving uncontrollably, until it fell to the ground and convulsed. Upon expiration, fine root-like hairs were observed to grow from the underside of the pig. The flesh of the pig underwent a transformation into SCP-299 material starting from the point of injection. After 2 hours, the pig was observed to have become another instance of SCP-299, complete with tendrils and leaves. Subject subsequently incinerated. Addendum 299-5. As of 2000, the trees in Area 299 had begun diverging from the standard form of SCP-299, with several growing what appeared to be white flowers up to 2 meters above the ground level. Following standard protocol, D-Class personnel were sent in to determine if the new mutation was dangerous. Upon approaching the flower, the petals unfurled into a highly mobile tendrils which immediately ensnared the head of the D-Class before pulling him back further into the tree. All personnel were immediately removed from the area and placed on a 48-hour quarantine. The D-Class subject was later observed emerging from the tree line approximately 5 hours after being ensnared, apparently unharmed. Subject was then put into a 48-hour quarantine in accordance to protocol. Subject protested vocally against the quarantine, stating that he had to see the sun. 10 hours into the quarantine, subject spontaneously lost consciousness, and several branches of SCP-299 began growing from the subject's head and torso. Subject was terminated and then incinerated with all other growths of SCP-299. Changes to containment protocol to respond to this development are under review.